So imagine a scenario in which we can no longer eat tomatoes, but we still want to make a cheese and tomato pizza. That is the nature of today's challenge, and we're going to have a go at it. Now, in actual fact, this challenge was set to me by a subscriber who contacted me on Instagram and specifically gave me the challenge of making a tomato sauce containing no tomatoes or peppers. So, I had a bit of a think about this, and I'm going to be using rose hips instead of tomatoes. Rose hips are the fruit of rose bushes. Generally, they're quite small, but there is a species called Rosa rugosa, which has very large, fat rose hips, which we're going to be using today. Now, I am by no means the first person to observe the similarity between rose hips and tomatoes. In fact, in this book, which I've had for many years now, the author actually gives a recipe for rose hip soup and says, when preparing rose hips for sweet recipes, I've always noticed how when raw, they're similar to tomatoes in taste, smell and colour. This gave me the idea to make a soup from rose hips which tastes exactly like fresh tomato soup. Well, exactly like might be a little bit of a stretch there, but anyway, I'm in agreement, actually, from having prepared rose hips before. They're more of a savoury fruit than a sweet one. So let's get started. So I can have tomatoes, so I'm going to just taste a piece of tomato now and just take some mental notes about what we're going to try to replicate. Okay, so to me, tomatoes have got definitely a sweetness to them. They've got an almost salty savouriness to them, acidity obviously, and a certain sort of texture and substance as well that we need to try to replicate. So I've got some lovely rose hips here which I picked from a plant called Rosa rugosa, and they are different from your standard wild rose hips in that they're really big, and I'm hoping that'll just make them a bit easier to prepare. These are also at the peak of ripeness, so they're actually starting to turn quite soft. But that's going to be ideal, I think, for what we're going to do today. So let's just have a closer look at what these are like inside. So they've got this cavity full of seeds and minute hairs, and the hairs are quite irritant on skin, so probably not good to eat. But if we look at the flesh around the seeds, it kind of does look quite tomatoey, doesn't it? So I'm just going to have a little taste of a piece of that now, tiniest little piece. Considerably sweeter than tomato, and fruitier, I would say. So we are going to have something to counteract that and bring back the kind of savoury flavour of the tomato. And one vegetable I think has got a similar savoury saltiness to tomato is celery. So we're going to be using a bit of that in our sauce. And to give us the substance of tomato, I'm going to go for sweet potato, which is orange as well, so hopefully that'll help with the colour. So we're going to have to remove all those seeds, take off the persistent flower structure there, remove any little bits of tough stalk, and then reserve the rest of the fruit, and we'll see what we end up with. The skin is not bitter or anything like that, so I'm actually going to use the skin as well. So this is a really sticky and fiddly job. I'm just going to see if it's different if we do it this way. Cut the rose hips in that direction. Well, that might be actually better. Seem to be losing a bit less of the flesh of the rose hip when I cut it that way. Well, this is going to be time consuming, so we're going to cut here and back when I've processed all of these rose hips. So that was a messy and laborious job, but I've managed to separate about a cupful of rose hip flesh. Not all of the rose hips were good to use. Some of them were a bit poor inside, others were too far along the ripening, and actually when I tried to separate out the seeds I was left with nothing but skin. So this is not going to go to waste. I'm going to use this for a bit of guerrilla gardening, I think. So I know a place where I can plant these rose seeds. It's not a wild place, it's kind of a verge, a grass verge next to a fence. So I'm going to plant these and see if we can do a bit of guerrilla gardening, grow some rose bushes in a public place. So for the other ingredients, we're going to have a stick of celery. And I'm just going to cut this into smallish pieces. Really, there's no need to cut this very small. the purpose of doing this is really just so it will cook fairly fast. So celery is going to go into a pan with a little bit of oil. I'm actually just going to soften that in the oil very gently first, just till it starts to caramelise. Meanwhile, sweet potato. And I only probably want about half of this sweet potato, I think, so the other half I will use for something else. And again, I'm going to cut this into fairly small pieces. Just because that makes it easier to cook quickly. Now, if you're worried about what you perceive to be the proximity of the knife blade and my fingers, be aware that the camera often distorts perspective. And my fingers are actually quite safe here. Good. Okay, so let's get that in the pan as well. And I'm not going to add the rose hips just yet because I want these vegetables to just soften and cook a little bit before I do that. I don't want to overcook the rose hips. I don't really know why, actually. That's just the way I feel it probably needs to work. Okay, so those have started to soften and caramelise on the bottom of the pan a little bit. That's good. I'm actually going to take out half of this until I've seen what it's like with the rose hips, because I don't want to overwhelm the rose hips with other ingredients. So we've gone back down to about half of the stuff. I'm just going to put a dash of water in to stop things burning now. Just a little dash of water to stop things burning. White wine would be good, but I'm making this for someone who's allergic to sulfites as well, so that limits the use of white wine, I'm afraid. Right, so in with the rose hips. And we'll just cook that for a little bit and see what that looks like. Now's the chance to just give this a little bit of a savoury boost with some dried mixed herbs. That's sage, rosemary, parsley, thyme. Okay, so that's softened down a fair bit now. So we're going to put it in the food processor and blend it to a sauce. I'm just going to add a bit of water to help that to blend, and then we'll reduce it down again afterwards. Okay, it looks a little bit too orange, but it might be okay. Okay, everything in here is cooked, so now's a chance for me to taste it and see if I'm even on the right track. Okay, needs a little bit more salt, because actually those rose hips are quite sweet. So, back into the pan, and then we're just going to reduce this very gently to try to just bring it to a kind of the paste consistency that we can use as a sauce on pizza. It's not far off. Okay, so as this is reducing down, it's actually starting to look more convincingly tomato-like. There is an aroma, which is definitely rose hips, and a little bit of sweet potato, that is not tomato, but I don't know. I think we're probably going to be okay. I'm going to say that is now sufficiently reduced because it's leaving the bottom of the pan dry when I rub the spatula through it. I think any further than that and we're going to start to burn it. So, heat off now, and then I'm going to let that cool a little bit before we try to use it on the pizza. Right, pizza is going to be nice and simple today. I've just got a little bit of yeasted bread dough that I've got here. Just made a quick dough this morning, and it's had a little bit of chance to prove. Just going to work that a little bit and then roll it out. So I'm just going to roll this to approximately the size of my baking tray. Good. Onto my lightly oiled tray. Going to be a square pizza, but why not? Right, oven's nearly up to temperature, so it's time for assembly of the pizza. So let's get a bit of that sauce on there. I'm just going to spread it a bit thinner on the middle so we don't end up with a soggy bit in the middle there. Okay. Bit of cheese on there. And into a hot oven for, I don't know, 20 minutes. Okay, I think that's done. Let's have a look. Not bad. Okay, let's go and give this a try. Right, well, pizza is served. Let's just have a look at this before I put anything else on my plate. So, the sauce has darkened a little bit since it was cooked, and that's starting to look quite authentic. Appearance is not bad. The all-important taste test. Yeah, I actually think that's quite believably tomato pizza. Really, I've got Jenny scoring this as well. So,
yeah, I'll give it all 5. But honestly, there's nothing wrong with this at all.
Yeah, I'm actually going to give that top marks myself. I would say perhaps it's a little bit more orange than a shop-bought tomato sauce, but when you make your own tomato sauce at home,
it's going to be orange anyway.
It's quite often not as red as the tomato sauce you buy in the shops. It's quite often a bit more orange, isn't it, if you make it with your own tomatoes. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That is an amazing success. And the rosehips have given... It does taste like tomato, doesn't it? They're quite amazing. So there we go. Cheese and no tomato pizza. It can be done. I hope that was interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.